Hello, everyone. Now you will hear a brief retelling of the film The Eternal Zero. Enjoy your viewing. At his grandmother's funeral, Kentaro learned that she had another husband, and his mother was born from him. The next day, Kentaro's sister Keika suggested that the guy learn more about their real grandfather. Maybe she will even write a book about him. First, they got permission to investigate from the step-grandfather. Miyabe married the grandmother in 41 and died in 45. He was only 26 years old. Kentaro is the same age now, but he still hasn't achieved anything in life. Relatives came to the old man Asakawa, who declared that the grandfather was the biggest coward in the entire Japanese Air Force. Miyabe was obsessed with surviving, while other pilots gave their lives for the country. While I lost my arm, his plane didn't have a single scratch. Asakawa is sure that Miyabe died only because he received a direct order, probably even washed his face with tears before that. Other former pilots confirm Asakawa's words. Miyabe was a disgrace to aviation, and his comrades died for him. But then the old Yakuza Kajiwara ordered Kentaro to leave when he called his grandfather a coward. Another veteran called Miyabe an amazing pilot. He was the best in the squad, but instead of leading the others, he fled from battle. The man talked about the Zero fighters, incredibly maneuverable Japanese planes, and Miyabe was the best at controlling this machine. Yes, everyone called their grandfather a coward, and unfortunately, this cannot be changed. A young sergeant landed perfectly on an aircraft carrier, although he had never done it before. Izaki was glad to meet him, but the other pilots convince the guy that he will soon be disappointed in him. Miyabe is the main coward. His motto is "Life is a treasure." Pilots undergo intensive training, and Miyabe was always the best among the pilots. It all started with the attack on Pearl Harbor. Almost 200 Japanese planes attacked the American military base, bombarding it with torpedoes and bombs. Everyone was happy with the successful operation and shouted "Banzai!" Everyone except Miyabe, because 29 planes didn't return. 3 pilots died right before his eyes in the bombers. He doesn't want to die. Izaki was displeased to hear this. On June 5, 1942, during the Battle of Midway, the Japanese were subjected to a surprise attack. Fighters took off to prevent the enemy from reaching the aircraft carrier, but the Japanese were outsmarted, lured away from the carrier. Another group of planes dropped bombs on the ship, and the aircraft carrier was sunk. Those who were in the air made an emergency landing on shore. That summer, the survivors went to a base where the best pilots were gathered. Miyabe became a squadron sergeant. The young pilot Kiyama doesn't like that they always withdraw from battle first. Kiyama wants to fight the Americans. The sergeant maintains his physical condition to be ready for overloads. He showed Izaki a photo of his wife and daughter. If he dies, the war will not end immediately, and his family will suffer. That's why it's so important to return to them. Caution is not cowardice. Soon, the largest Pacific battle took place. The Japanese airbase was destroyed right after it was completed. They will retaliate and attack the ground forces of Guadalcanal. Miyabe did the calculations and realized that they wouldn't be able to fight after flying such a distance. For his cowardice, Miyabe was immediately slapped in the face. The sergeant explained to Izaki that having reached Guadalcanal, they could fight for a maximum of 10 minutes. Otherwise, they wouldn't have enough fuel for the return journey. Moreover, they would be very tired after 4 hours of flight. Everything happened just like that. After the battle, the exhausted pilots began to pass out. Wounded Kiyama decided he wouldn't have enough fuel to return to base. Therefore, he wanted to turn around and attack the enemy, like a kamikaze. But Miyabe didn't allow him. The base was already close. But Kiyama still ran out of fuel and had to land on the water. Miyabe promised to do everything to save him. But at the crash site, Kiyama was never found. Most likely, the pilot was eaten by sharks. Izaki is outraged. Why didn't the sergeant allow Kiyama to become a kamikaze and die as a hero? According to Izaki, there's not a single chance that they will survive this war. So why disgrace oneself and cling to life? If I'm ever shot down, please give me a chance to become a suicide attacker. Miyabe disagrees. Izaki's parents, his friends are waiting for him at home. That's why he must survive, so they don't suffer. And now old man Izaki tells about the sergeant and his grandchildren. If it weren't for the sergeant, my daughter would never have been born. In 44, Izaki was shot down but didn't become a kamikaze. He remembered the commander's words and clung to life. He spent 9 hours in the ocean, fearing sharks, but survived. Miyabe was never a coward. During the war, he only managed to meet his family once, at the very beginning. The man immediately ran to see his newborn daughter Kyoko. At dawn, Miyabe said goodbye to his wife. Matsuno asked him to be careful. I will definitely return home, Miyabe promised. Even if I die, I will return reborn. Izaki confessed that he has the last stage of cancer. But he was supposed to die 3 months ago. Apparently, he stayed to tell the sergeant's grandchildren the whole truth about him. His daughter Kyoko learned the truth about her father. But then why did Miyabe want to become a kamikaze? Kentaro managed to persuade another veteran, Mr. Atakida, to tell everything he knows about his grandfather. In 45, Miyabe was an instructor at an aviation school. Even students were ordered to go into battle. They had almost no practice. Why is that? Because they were made into a special kamikaze strike squad. One could refuse, but almost everyone agreed in the end. That year, 4,400 suicide attackers died. Half of them were students. Miyabe constantly refused Atakida to take him into another kamikaze squad, which angered the young man very much. The students had already heard rumors about their instructor's cowardice. Now it's clear why he refuses everyone. During training, pilots practiced diving, and due to a technical failure, one of the students crashed. Losing a life before meeting the enemy is a disgrace to the army, says the major. Miyabe stood up for the deceased pilot and was brutally beaten in front of the students. The major had heard about a sergeant who doesn't let the guys go into battle. He is a disgrace to his country. After this incident, the students respected instructor Miyabe. During an air battle, a persistent American tailed him, and no matter how the sergeant tried to escape, he was about to be shot down. But his student crashed into the enemy plane. He saved the instructor but was severely injured. You must survive and do a lot for our country, Miyabe told the boy in the hospital. After this incident, Takeda was sent to serve on an airbase, and he never saw Miyabe again. He also can't understand why the sergeant became a kamikaze. Kentaro has failed the law exam 4 times and considers himself useless. But the man is confident that he will succeed if Miyabe's blood runs in him. Kentaro went to see Mr. Kajiwira again. Since the boy no longer considers his grandfather a coward, the Yakuza is ready to tell about Miyabe and why he became a kamikaze. Kajiwira loved their battles and dreamed of becoming a legend of the Imperial Fleet. Therefore, he hated Miyabe, who always returned to base with an intact and unharmed plane. He also envied the instructor's skill and once asked for a training battle, but Miyabe refused. However, after another battle, the sergeant finally accepted the challenge. Kajiwira tried hard to aim at the instructor's plane, but at one moment he found himself in the crosshairs and didn't even understand how it happened. The proud pilot fired at Miyabe's plane but couldn't hit it. The sergeant was again behind him, but unlike the villain, he didn't shoot back. By that time, the Imperial fleet was practically destroyed. The cornered Japanese army came up with a crazy plan using kamikazes. The pilots from the Special Strike Squad had not a single chance to return alive. Kajiwira refused to participate in this and was assigned to guard the Special Squad. He met Miyabe again, who had become a lieutenant by then. But he was already a different person. During the kamikaze operation, they try to reach the enemy aircraft carriers, but they are shot down one by one. All of them were ready to part with life, but no one managed to do it heroically. This terrible picture broke Miyabe, as he sent young guys, his students, to certain death every day. The enemy's planes became much better than the Zero fighters. The Americans also improved their anti-aircraft artillery. All these guys were not born to die like this, and Miyabe couldn't do anything about it. The man believes that he was able to live so long only thanks to their deaths. According to the Yakuza, Miyabe no longer looked like a person from this world. Kajiwara refused to volunteer for the strike squad because he understood how senseless this death was. But one day he saw Miyabe's name on the list of volunteers. Kajiwara was very upset and swore to protect Miyabe to the end, to do everything so that not a single enemy could get close to him. But in the air before the battle, his plane's engine failed, and Kajiwara could no longer catch up with the lieutenant. On that day before departure, Miyabe for some reason changed his plane for an older Model 25. And so it happened that his 52nd Zero also malfunctioned, and the pilot who got Miyabe's plane didn't even reach the enemy. Thus, the lieutenant still saved one life, as after that operation, the strike squads were no longer sent on raids. Kentaro was eager to meet that surviving pilot, and Kajiwara's story ended there. On leaving, the Yakuza hugged the grandson of the great ace. Keika found her shocked brother standing in the pouring rain. He learned that their grandfather was that surviving pilot. So, the grandchildren returned to where they started. Uishi had long wanted to tell them the whole truth, but the grandmother was against it. Uishi was the student who saved Miyabe during the battle. The instructor visited the guy in the hospital and gave him his tunic. Miyabe boasted a photo of his wife and daughter. It was for Keiko that he didn't want to die. Uishi confessed that after the war, he dreams of helping people. But in 45, he ended up in a kamikaze squad where he met all his schoolmates. An instructor Miyabe cowered in a corner and looked at him with an unseeing gaze. Before the last flight, all kamikazes drink sake for success. And after their deaths, the commander compiles a new list of suicide attackers. Uishi saw his name next to the lieutenant's name. After the decision was made, Miyabe seemed to perk up. Uishi now values water, streams, and grass. And yet, yesterday, they meant nothing to him. He didn't think about his family and the future of Japan. The boy finds it hard to imagine himself dead. At dawn, Uishi drank sake and was ready to get into the cockpit. But then Miyabe approached and asked to swap planes. The lieutenant's first flight was on Model 25. So let the last one be on it too. That day, many pilots went on their last flight. Suddenly, Uishi's engine malfunctioned. Miyabe gestured for him to make an emergency landing on an island. Immediately after the war, Uishi went searching for Matsuno. But Yakagama was burnt to the ground. And the boy was able to find the widow only 2 years later. The woman lived in one of the barracks in Osaka and single-handedly raised Kyoko. I will definitely come back. Liar. For a moment, Matsuno thought her husband had returned. Uishi's heart was torn by how hard the lieutenant's relatives were living. The young man told how he managed to survive. So that's his fate. You are not to blame for this. Uishi doesn't believe it was a coincidence. Because Miyabe left a photo of Matsuno and a letter for him in the cockpit. He knew the engine in his ZRO was faulty. The man asked the student to find and help his family. The woman turned the guest away, but Uishi didn't leave the family. He periodically moved to give Matsuno money, but the proud woman refused to take it every time. However, Uishi didn't give up and continued to visit the poor family. Over time, Matsuno softened. Especially since Kyoko loved the kind young man. So month passed after month. One day, Matsuno told Uishi that he had done enough for them and now could leave. But caring for the family became his purpose in life. Uishi also fell in love with Matsuno from the very first day. The young man was uncomfortable with his words and wanted to leave. But Matsuno stopped him. The husband finally kept his word and returned home reborn. He is now with her and Kyoko. Wishi showed the descendants that very letter. Miyabe was not afraid of death. He was afraid of causing pain to his loved ones. Soon, the grandfather married Matsuno. And they never spoke of Miyabe again, but always remembered him. The investigation had a huge impact on Kentaro, the loser, and Laybout. So many young guys fought and clung to their lives, to return to their loved ones and make Japan better. We see the last minutes of Miyabe's life. Flying at minimum altitude, he soared into the sky. And in a steep dive, he struck an American aircraft carrier. He did what no other pilot could do,